What is going on, gamers? True Vanguard here, coming at you with some Division gameplay. I got to play the beta extensively. I had a lot of free time, got to sort of tap into it and see the limits that it had to offer. Got up to the max level in the beta, level 8. Collected some various good gear along the way. And in this particular video, I'm going to show you gameplay from just a solo run through the hard mode of the only real mission that we had access to in the beta. And I'm going to offer some of my impressions so far. I'm going to do two videos, one on PVE, the sort of story aspect, and then I'll do another video for specifically the Dark Zone and my experiences therein and sort of how things played out. So here I am doing the mission. This is in Madison Square Garden, and just as a heads up, if you have a desire to make this first mission really fresh for you when you first experience it, then you may not want to watch this. I mean, there's no cutscenes or anything. It's really just moving through a building and shooting people. But there's no major spoilers here. But if you wanted it to be fresh for you, then you could skip over this video just as a forewarning. You won't see anything that's gonna be earth-shattering here. But this is just the first mission, and essentially what you've got going on here is a situation where there is a specific doctor that is sort of being held captive by these hoodlums, and they are forcing her to treat their wounded. So your goal here is to sort of rebuild your home base, and part of that means having a medical wing. So you're looking to rescue this doctor, bring her back in, and sort of enhance your home base by giving you, that medical wing, and presumably there's a lot of things that you can unlock there. And the interesting thing is the direct correlation between the wings that you have in your home base and the research that you do therein. Then it carries over into the way that you actually play the game and the skills that you have when you go out into the field. And so that's an interesting correlation. It really does feel very Mass Effect-y when you have the Normandy and the various people that work on the Normandy, and how what you do there on the ship affects what you do in the real world, in the game world. So that's an interesting correlation. Feels very Mass Effect-y. There's actually a lot of things that feel sort of Mass Effect-like in terms of the mechanics. Obviously, it's a third-person shooter. First and foremost, I do want to talk about the movement system. As a third-person cover-based shooter, there's a lot of games out there to compare it to. I think that at first the movement felt really clunky, to be honest. It felt a little bizarre, a little bit weird, difficult to get used to. But as I got used to it, that sort of went away. As I got used to the mechanics and sort of how things worked, I felt that I was a little bit more free to move around the map in ways that I actually wanted to without having to stop and think about it. The only thing I would say is that the vertical movement, when you have to get down from high places or move up, those mechanics are a little bit clunky still. It doesn't feel very smooth, doesn't feel very rhythmic, and so it can kind of throw off your mojo sometimes, your momentum, and make you actually, whenever you have to stop thinking about how you're approaching the scenario, whenever you have to stop thinking about how you're playing the game, just to give special attention to how you're going to move up or down from the position you're in terms of like a ladder or just vaulting down, that's not good. You don't want to break up the gameplay by making the player think about simple things like, how do I just get down? This isn't a high spot. I just want to jump down here. How do I do that? You know what I mean? So I think they can work on that. That could be a little bit more smooth, those vertical transitions. Now, in terms of map design, I think this is actually, with this being the only mission we have access to, obviously this doesn't speak to the whole game. I'd hate to make a judgment based off of one story mission, but in general I felt that this story mission was pretty neat in terms of its map design. Everything seemed to flow logically. You felt like you were actually in Madison Square Garden. And as you progress throughout the map, you can still look down and see where you were, and it flowed well. It made good sense, and the map is designed in such a way that you can make approaches and engage the enemy in a way that sort of suited your playstyle. It suited your guns. You could hang back if you had the precision weapons. I used like a Scar H, and then I got the superior purple M1 semi-auto precision rifle. I really liked using those, but then I also had an SMG, so when I got up close I could do some serious damage as well. And this particular run through was before I had any legendary gear. Eventually I was fully decked out, but you know, I will talk a little bit about the skills. I thought that the skills were in a lot of ways sort of incomparable in terms of their value and use. It felt like as you progressed to level 8, you got to the point where everyone was using the healing ability and the sort of pulse scan that sends out a pulse that, you know, highlights enemies on the map and friendlies, and sort of non-rogue agents as well, which was helpful in the Dark Zone. But I felt that you were forced to go to those two perks in particular, and to sort of abandon the sticky grenade, the sticky mine, which I'm using in this gameplay here, which was a bomb that you could sort of shoot. You could stick it onto enemies, you could stick it onto enemy players, you could stick it onto walls, use it as a trap, and I enjoyed using it, but it wasn't that effective. There's only one particular location in the game, and I'll show you that in this gameplay. There's really only one particular spot in the game where I found the sticky bomb was useful, and that was this little bottleneck that a bunch of these hoodlums come running through. And it's only useful then if you know, if you've played the mission before and you know that they're coming through that choke point, because they sort of just barge through at a certain point. There was another skill in the security tree, the only skill we had in the security tree, that allowed you to put up a big shield and advance, and it served as sort of a bullet sponge, as you could use a sidearm just your pistol to shoot around the side of it, sort of like a riot shield. And you know, in theory, I thought, hey, this could be fun to play with, sort of advance and heal my teammates, revive them if they're down on the ground. I could sort of push forward and absorb some damage as I push up to my teammates, get the revive with the shield up. But I found that you're just too limited with that shield. You, for one, if you pull it out, you're committed to it. You can put it away if you hold the skill button that you have it mapped to, but you could pull it out for 2 seconds, and then if you decide that, you know, the firefight's over and you used it for the 2 seconds that you needed it, if you put it away, it resets the cooldown entirely, even if you only had it out for 2 seconds. So I feel like maybe they should consider, when you put the shield away, taking the unused time that you could have been using it, that you didn't end up using it. Take that into account when you put it back, put it away. And then the cooldown for the next time you use it could be shorter if you didn't use it, all the time that you had available to use it. If that makes sense, that would be nice. It didn't really have much of a use or an effect. In theory, it worked out well for pushing up on people, but when the shield is taking damage, it's sort of disorienting, and it makes you feel like you're taking damage, so you end up playing more passive than you should when you have the shield out. So anyways, I thought the skills were nice. Here's the one bottleneck where they're going to come through, and so I put that sticky bomb there. So I hope they take the time to look at the skills that they've given us and making sure that they are balanced, that players aren't going to be highly encouraged to go only one or two directions with their skills. Make sure that each skill has enough incentive for the player to use them, if that makes sense. But I am excited to see what the other skills in the skill trees have to offer, and playing with them as well. And we didn't get access to the perks, the individual perks that you can unlock as well. This is an RPG, so hopefully it's your character is going to be highly customizable. I did like that there were these light blue drops, these sort of aqua blue drops, which were just aesthetics, like jackets, boots, things that don't really affect your armor or anything about your stats. They just affect how your character looks, and I think that that's a fun mechanic as well. Gunplay, I thought that the gunplay felt really nice. It was smooth, it wasn't very clunky. The reticles, I would say on some of the precision rifles, the reticles don't make sense. It's a precision rifle and they don't give you a dot or a precision sort of scope. The reticle that they give you in the third person mode is like big and open, and it just doesn't really make sense for a precision rifle. But other than that, I thought that the gunplay was really nice. It worked out pretty well. The sounds for the guns were really on point. They sounded powerful, they sounded unique, and I really enjoyed that as well. Now, one of the things that I will say about the realism of the enemies that you're going up against is that sometimes it frankly just didn't make any sense. I'm going up against these hoodlums and hoodies and baseball caps who are shooting guns sideways over cover, and they're really accurate, and they can tank a lot of damage, and that didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. I understand that it's on hard mode, but when I'm looking at a guy who's visibly wearing no body armor, and he's tanking that much damage, I spend too much time, too much of my cognitive time thinking about how unrealistic that is, and it just takes me away from the actual enjoyment of the gameplay and the enjoyment of the gunplay. So if they could do something visually that sort of made that make sense to me, then that would help me out a little bit. Because visually I'm looking at a guy wearing a baseball cap and I'm putting 5 to 6 headshots into him before he goes down, and I'm thinking that just does not compute for me. So if they could sort of make that make some sense, then I'll spend less time thinking about how weird that is, and more time just enjoying the game. So when it comes to these firefights, though, they were really enjoyable, and I liked the gunplay, especially in environments like this where it's big and open, and you really have to think about how you're going to approach the engagement, what skills you have available to you, what equipment you have available to you, and how you're going to use all those things in conjunction. I liked that. But when it comes to the open PVE world, when you get out of the mission we only have one to go off of, but the action was pretty consistent and pretty steady. But when you get out into the PVE world, the free roam area, excluding the dark zone, it felt really empty and unpopulated. It was big, and so it would take you, a decent amount of time just to run to a different part of the map. But if there were any enemy mobs along the way, it was just 2 or 3 guys, and those firefights were over within seconds, and then you're back to spending minutes just running, and that was a bit off-putting to me. Maybe it's just my playstyle, but I prefer consistent amounts of action, and I don't mind downtime. But if there's going to be downtime in an RPG game like that, for me it has to be something like in Skyrim, for example, a big open world RPG. If I'm not actively engaged in combat as I'm running around the map, that map is beautiful. It's gorgeous. You're just simply taking in the environment, the feeling of riding a horse across a big empty plain with mountains in the distance. I love it. The feel of it just feels good. It's not that the map design is bad in The Division, but it is somewhat monotonous. It's New York City, so the architecture isn't that diverse from street to street to street in this open PVE area, at least the parts of the map that we had access to. And so as I'm running around the map, I'm just kind of feeling like it's the same old every time I turn a corner, and there's lulls in action that I'm not really too excited about. So maybe if they can make the final product, make the world feel more populated, make it feel like it has more of a purpose, because as it stands, I was a bit off-put by how much time I simply spent running, and it didn't. That's not enjoyable. Just running down the street is not an enjoyable experience to me when I do it for minutes and minutes and minutes at a time. So if they can make the world feel a little bit more populated, that would go a long way for me in terms of making it feel like my movement has purpose. And there's no way to actually get around this map, at least in the beta, besides running. You don't have a motorcycle or anything like that can help you get around more quickly. There's no mounts. So it's a big world, and the fast travel system, you could only fast travel back to the base, and that was a little, even that was a little clunky. Sometimes it says, hey, this is fast travel, but then the amount of load time was kind of long. So anyways, this is just some of my thoughts on the open world. I am excited about this game. I know that in some of my critiques I've been a little nitpicky, but I really want this game to be as enjoyable as possible. I want it to be every bit the game that I hoped it could be. And the loot drive was real. I certainly felt that pull to get more loot, to get purple gear, to grind out my dead zone credits so that I could get the sort of legendary, the top tier yellow items as well, and got my hands on some of that stuff in addition. And so that was enjoyable. I want the game to be great, I really do, and I am excited about it. I'd be interested to hear what your experiences were and sort of how you felt about the game as well. I will post another video on the dead zone and some of my better loot along the way as well, so feel free to check that out. And guys, I will catch you later.